Welcome to the TIMFD podcast. Today is my favorite day is about appreciating every day as it comes, no matter what life throws at us. We hope that this podcast speaks to you, and if it does, please like, share, and comment. Now let's find out why today is our favorite day this week.
Welcome back. Today is my favorite day. How are we doing today, David?
I'm doing good. Doing good. Living. You're living well.
Yes.
Yep.
We want to talk today about apologizing.
Why do I want to do that?
Well, because it's so difficult for everybody to do.
I don't want to apologize.
Yes. And most of us, that's how we are. We're afraid. There's all sorts of reasons we don't want to apologize. Most of it stems back to one word.
I wasn't wrong. those are more words.
Yes. Pride.
It's pride. Yeah, of course.
It's always pride.
Always try to, we think we're right. The other person's wrong. Yep. We hurt them. And we don't want to, because in our culture, it shows weakness.
Yes.
At least people think that.
But not. A sincere, honest apology is a sign of strength.
Well, I actually ran into a guy that said, I will never apologize. He's a successful businessman. I will never apologize to anyone. And
wow.
And he's been married 4 times.
Well, there you go.
Bam.
Yeah, where's our drummer? It's like, yeah, you're right. And we make mistakes. And
everybody does.
Everybody does. There's only one person who never did.
Yeah.
And that's why we have a future and we're all going to heaven.
Well, I think a lot of times this is just maybe not being self-aware of the pain maybe you caused somebody. I know that can happen with me. So I literally tell people that are now working with me, doing whatever, hey, I may step on your toes, and you just have to tell me when that happens. And a lot of times over the years, I've gotten more self-aware. I'm just being honest here. I mean, that's just what, and trying to be, especially as a kind of a high type A, high energy person, I have to always think about that. I don't walk on eggshells, but if someone comes to me and says, hey, Dave, can we talk? I always know what that means.
Yeah.
and then it's okay. And then I have to listen and do the whole, we've talked about before, paraphrase, hear what they're having to say, don't try to think everything in my brain. Right. And then when I finally paraphrase it back correctly, then I could see, I could see the pain that's caused there and then ask for forgiveness and move on.
And when you get right down to it, if we've wronged somebody, and we both know it, if we've wronged somebody, we need to make amends. We have a whole process for that and everything else. But sometimes we blow the conversation up in our mind so much that we don't know how the other person's going to react when it's time to go apologize.
Yeah, fear.
And so there's a fear.
Yeah, there's a running, fleeing, kind of the flee-freeze, kind of mindset or fight. And in this case, this would be the I'm out of here.
Yeah, and if I ignore it, it'll go away.
Well, I've seen that in like little league and soccer leagues, where a family has been hurt, and instead of dealing with it, they just leave the league and go to a different league.
Yeah.
I see that in churches. Someone gets hurt, instead of just growing and learning from it, they go off to another church, bringing their same hurt with them.
Yeah.
And you see that in marriages too, where they've gone through a divorce. Maybe there wasn't a forgiveness kind of thing going on, and then it goes again and again, and the same issues take up. Yeah, just
until they decide to break the cycle.
Correct.
You have to. The church thing is really kind of funny, because one of the things that we tried to do in Cheyenne was, when somebody left the church, was at least have a communication with them and say, what's up, not necessarily to get them to pull away from the church that they were going to, but to make sure that when they went forward, it was for the right reasons. Yeah. Now, if you're leaving because you're hurt, okay, I can't fix that hurt, but if I hurt you, let's
clean it up
between us.
Clean it up.
Yeah. And it's just, it has to be an honest and sincere apology.
Yeah.
You can't, I'm sorry. That just doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Sorry that I devastated you.
Yeah.
Without really knowing the hurt that we really caused.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we do that. Y'all do it. So do I. Dave does it. We all, but we have to learn how to apologize properly.
Okay. Yep.
Don't you think? So if you think you owe an apology, you probably do, right?
Oh, yeah.
And one of the self-awareness, one of the things that we get into is the denial that, maybe an apology isn't warranted. Maybe I don't really need to apologize because they weren't really offended, right? Now, how are you going to find out?
You just ask.
You got to ask.
I ask.
Right? Yeah. And if you don't ask, then you're...
Yeah. And I had some people that kind of laugh and go, no, there was nothing there. And I went, okay, I just want to know. Just want to make sure. Just because why have any
right.
ill will going on around you.
And on the other side to that, somebody comes to you and says, I said something the other day and I think I may have offended you. Don't sweep it under the rug.
No. If it did offend you, you need to talk about it.
If they did, you need to talk about it and then talk it out. That makes the apology a lot easier and a lot more sincere on both sides. And you continue to move forward. Here's the thing. If you've offended somebody or they've offended you, it's just going to fester.
Yeah.
I mean, because we're human, and until we get the apology out of the way, until we actually have a sincere conversation, you can't forgive.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
And when it comes to apologizing, it comes to forgiving, we still have to rebuild trust. Just because you apologize doesn't mean that
we're going
to trust you right away.
No, not at all. No, trust and verify, right? But
trust and verify.
But trusting somebody to forgive somebody and say, okay, the forgiveness that Christ gave me, I'm going to give to you.
Right.
And now what we're going to do is the relationship can now start getting be mended, and now we could start working on the trust. Right. That takes time. It takes coming through on things to clean that up. So yeah, I agree with that.
But I have an interesting story. My son, when he was between 14 and 15 years old. Now we were living in South Dakota at the time, and you could drive at 14.
Wow.
Yeah, you would be amazed what that does to your insurance rates. Anyway,
I'm sure it skyrockets.
It was skyrocketed. So he was having some struggles, and he literally stole my motorcycle.
Oh wow.
Snuck it out of the shed and rolled it down the hill and took off in the middle of the night, right?
Love it.
And so he drove all the way from Rapid City, South Dakota to Salt Lake City, Utah.
Whoa! Stopped
in Sturgis. It was the middle of bike week in Sturgis. Had breakfast with 2 cops. Now, my son has a baby face. Okay, he's 50 years old and he still looks, he'd probably get carded.
Wow.
Okay? And so anyway, in the middle of the night, they don't question him or anything like that. He makes it all the way to Salt Lake City. He's on his way back. Tire blows out. And he is in Rock Springs. Well, my parents lived in Rock Springs, Wyoming at the time. They had come up because he took off.
Oh.
And so, and a little bit of a backstory. At that time, a weapon was missing.
Oh, no.
And so, so anyway.
So it was a combination.
It was a combination of things, right? And so he goes to my parents' house. He has a key, so it's not breaking in, and he's family, right? So he's sitting there watching TV, and a friend comes by, right? And of course, Tony knew what was going on, and Chris says to him, I suppose you're going to call my parents? And he says, absolutely. And so we called his parents first, and actually it ended up, and the police went to pick him up because nobody knew. Here's the thing. My brother-in-law at the time was a sheriff's deputy. He heard the call. He couldn't get there fast enough. There was a weapon involved. What do you think happened?
No. Lots of stuff.
When he got there, he spread eagle, this, that, and the other. And of course, they want to make sure he's not suicidal, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, we go back down to Rock Springs, and we sat down with a pastor friend of mine, and the whole conversation was one of those, why? That you want to know why. What did I do wrong? How did I hurt you? How did I offend you? And there was teenage rebellion is what it boiled down to.
Mm-hmm.
He was feeling like he was boxed in. He wasn't,
sure.
And I understood that. And he blew all of his savings. He did all that kind of stuff.
Well, he did the prodigal son thing there.
He did the whole prodigal son thing.
That's awesome.
So we're sitting there, and he looked at me and said, I'm really sorry. And I knew at that point in time that he was. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so my wife at the time did not. So the agreement was, we end this here. Okay? What's your punishment? And, I'm not going to hell for this, but the punishment was a spanking.
Wow, really? At that age?
Yeah, there was 3 whacks involved. And Dan, if the apology was sincere, there would be no holding it over your head. There's no, you did this. You did this to me. Yeah. Right?
The stamp collection.
The stamp, yeah right. And so
here's this stamp, this is what you did to me long ago. Yeah.
Right. And so
not healthy.
I was fine with it. Now, over the course of time, him and I discussed what he did, where he went, and he just basically did things that we had done as a family. And so, I kind of had to laughed, but I couldn't,
sure,
agree with what he did. But the whole thing came out. But I forgave him, but it took a while to build the trust back up.
Sure.
When it came to using the vehicles,
of course,
using the motorcycle.
Yeah.
And on the other side to that is that it was held over his head by his mother.
Oh, yeah.
And so, there was never a forgiveness there. And I think maybe she did not see the sincerity of the apology.
Okay.
And so I have to give her that benefit of the doubt. Knowing a little bit about her history and everything else. So my guess is she didn't see the sincerity of the apology. But there's a lot of families that won't survive that. You ran away, you took my motorcycle, you did this, and this, and so I can't trust you at all.
Sure.
And I can't live like that.
Yeah.
And I think we still have a pretty decent relationship. He has been very successful career. There was no charges filed and anything like that. And he moved on.
Yeah.
And I moved on.
Yeah.
And we can laugh about it. That's why I tell people that my son can remember the last spanking that he got.
Yeah, I imagine he would.
That was the last
How
one,
funny.
right? But that was the end of it.
Yeah.
Boom. It's done. Over.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I know that, we have different people, different ages, different forms of life watching these things. So one of the things that I learned with our girls is when you have a child that I don't know, it could be anything that we did. I think it would be like with Rebecca, it would have been something when she was really small of, it could have been, I didn't really raise my voice much at all, but I could have said, "Oh, that was nasty" or something, and Rebecca would look at me and I'd have to sit down. And what I did is I didn't sit down. I learned this from Tanya, was get on my knee to look at her eye to eye and hold her hand and say, "Rebecca, I know I shouldn't have used that word. No, stupid. That was the word stupid."
Oh,
and she looked at and it wasn't towards her, but I was saying, "I'm being stupid here." And she assumed it was towards her because she was small, maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And so to look at her eye to eye and hold her hand and say, "Rebecca, I should have never used that word for one. It wasn't towards you. It was towards me. And thirdly, will you forgive me?" And it was funny because every time I did this with the girls, because I did this with Shayna and Rebecca a lot, because it was a fumbling, bumbling idiot of a dad. She'd get this smile on her face, or Shayna would get this smile on her face. It was really kind of cute. With Tanya, that was something that had to start. I had to learn pretty quickly because there was a lot of stepping on her toes when we were first married. That's what guys do.
That's what we do.
And having to try to figure out what those things were. When we got into a healthy place, we've talked about this before. She would do the silent treatment. I'd clean everything, and we wouldn't talk about it for her first, 6-7 months of marriage, really. Yeah. And but when we got counseling and realized, this is what we need to do, then we could talk about it.
Right.
And if I offended her or she offended me, we can just say, "Hey, we need to talk about this," and and then go through that process of paraphrasing, letting the person speak what they need to speak without cutting them off. Paraphrase back if it's correct. Will you forgive me? Do you feel first? Do you feel like you were heard? And then, will you forgive me? And then we move on.
Yeah, we have to go through the steps. One of the thing that we have a tendency to not apologize for is our words. We don't think about them, and you just using the word stupid. I've been so guilty of that. Well, that was a stupid thing to do. Not directed at anybody, but everybody felt it.
Yeah.
And I could be saying it about myself, but
doesn't work
that way.
And we need to be able to clean that up quickly.
Yeah.
The thing with, if you're a parent of small kids, a lot of times parents don't even, you get frustrated with your child, right?
Yep.
And you go, "Get to your room," and it's a little harsh, or, the voice is a little higher. We have to also understand there's discipline. I get that, but we also have to understand we have to keep things under control. So if you're a parent and you see that, and you saw your voice get a little higher, or "Get to your room, I don't want to talk to you right now," that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I hear a lot from families. And if that happens, just know the heart of the child is affected.
It's crushed.
And and you don't have to crush yourself. You just need to get on your knee and sit down with them and say, I made a mistake. Yep. I feel like my voice when I raised it up, or when I said, you need to go to your room, I don't want to see you, that hurt your feelings. Did it hurt your feelings? Yes. Yep. Okay. I am very sorry that I hurt your feelings. Will you forgive me? Doing that with children is gigantic.
Huge.
And I'm talking little guys from, minute they're starting to talk up, because then they get used to it. The girls always knew that if I did something, I was going to go make amends and clean that up pretty quickly. So I always kind of joke that I had so much practice with the three girls, with Shayna and Tanya and Rebecca, on what I needed to do. And I had to be the example in the home, And I think that as a parent, we need to take that on. Now, if you have a teenager like you were talking about the teenager, it's about the same way, cleaning it up, looking face to face, treating them like an adult.
Yes.
Because they don't want to be treated like a little kid. Right. But treating them like an adult, when you get older kids, especially like you get them 16, 17, they're really wanting to spread their wings. Right. Okay, then we need to kind of talk this through and work it out, and just kind of go, hey, we're hurting, you're hurting. Yeah. Let's work through the paraphrasing process and all that. Right. And then the danger for most people when they get married is they don't learn this skill. And like you said, if they don't learn the skill, and it'll be in the notes,
the show notes.
Sam has show notes. They're going to be really good that you're going to want to download. So you could use some of it, especially there's a 7-step approach that he wrote in there. I think it's really good. But bottom line is, if we don't do that early in the marriage, you can be married for 20 years and all that animosity, all that anger, all that stuff that was never resolved will blow up. I've seen families just blow up because they did not work through that stuff. And we don't want to go through extra divorces. We don't, so it's important.
And one or more of the people in the marriage will hang in there until the kids are grown up.
And then they're out.
And then they're out.
I see it a lot.
Yeah. And it didn't have to happen.
No.
It boiled down to the simple,
just clean it up.
One-on-one, clean it up. And
make apologies. Take your pride out. Take our pride out of it. That's the biggest one for, and that's not just for men. That's men and women. We don't want to say I made a mistake.
Right.
I hurt you because you hurt me. Right. And your hurt hurts me more than I believe my hurt you. Yes. Do you see that kind of stuff?
Yeah,
and that becomes childish. Even though we're adults and we could be in our 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and still act that way. Yeah. It's best for us to be able to clean that up quickly. Yep. So apologies and working on apologies is great for marriages because you have to communicate, right? Yep. You have to communicate. You have to slow things down. You have to go through a process, and both people have to be willing to listen. Yep. And if we really care about each other, we'll listen. And if you do that, the earlier you do it, the quicker you do it, the better. And then if you've been hurt, the big thing here is the codependent people pleaser that doesn't want to say anything, because you hurt me, but I'm not going to say that because I'm concerned about how you're going to react. Right. Well, who cares about how you react? Yeah. It's about, let's clean this up. Your reaction is your problem. Right. So Tanya's reaction is her problem. Right. She reacts poorly or I react poorly. That's on me, not her. Yeah. If I'm reacting poorly, it's on her if she reacts poorly. So it's about being mature enough to sit there and go, you know what? I got to own this. Yeah. Right? Ownership in this kind of stuff's important.
It is.
And if we own it with our kids and we own it with our teenagers and own it with our older adult kids, if you're lucky enough to have that. I've had to do that with my children, where I've had to, humble myself. And I believe in James 4:10, humble yourself before the Lord and he will lift you up. I also believe in James 5:16, that if we confess one to another, we'll experience healing.
Right.
So, this whole idea of starting with the apology and just being able to say, I was wrong.
Right.
I'm sorry, will you forgive me, are big deals,
right?
But they take time. Yes. I was wrong. I heard you. I'm going to listen to you. Wow, I hurt that person. Mm-hmm. I was wrong. This is how I'm hearing I hurt you. Am I correct? Yes. I'm very sorry about that. My intention was not to hurt you, or it may have been. And you have to be honest about that. I reacted and lashed out at you, or whatever it was. Right. Or I did the silent treatment because I was hurt.
Right.
I know it's not right, but I did it. I'm sorry about that. And then the big thing is, will you forgive me? Mm-hmm. And then the other side is, will they forgive? Right. Well, that's on them.
That's on them.
If they don't forgive, they're still caught up in a prison of unforgiveness.
Yes.
Or if we don't forgive, we're in the prison of unforgiveness. Again, we talked about the difference between apologies, forgiveness, and trust.
Yes.
That which is earned over time.
Yes.
Trust is earned over time. Forgiveness, we give it.
Right.
And so we could find healing in us.
Yeah.
So important.
It's a very important topic. I would encourage you to take to heart one of the topics that Dave covered, and that is with your children. And that is to get on their level. Mm-hmm. And whether it's a young child, whether it's a teenagers, you really need to, they think they're adults. Mm-hmm. And so we have to
gotta treat them a lot like that. In that particular setting.
In that setting, yeah. So anyway, we've been talking about apologies here today. We have the old show notes. I'll have a link in there for
really
PDF.
Good. They're really
it's free. Just click on it.
You did a good job with that.
Oh, thank you very much.
No, it's good.
This has been David Towner, Sam McKeown. Today is our favorite day. Live intentionally, be blessed, my friends.
Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to TIMFD, Today is My Favorite Day. Views, comments, and opinions are those of the host and guest alone, and Dave and Sam are solely responsible for the content of this podcast. TIMFD is produced and directed by Alex Korn. Music is composed and performed by Chuck Fott. Thank you for listening. Have a great day, live intentionally, and be very blessed.